Yeah, I'm Dr. Pilet, and there's a question that I get asked a lot, and it's a question that I would like to just sort of address for a few minutes, just for a few minutes. And if you will, the question is, do people change? Do people change? Or you might make it more personal, will I ever change? And this is not a simple question, and it's a question that really deserves some attention, and I'll give you a scattershot response to that because I think you deserve an answer. The truth is that when we look at any part of your personality, any part of who you are today, it just didn't start today, it started at birth. And when we take a look at the device that brings about this investment, this notion of personality, it's the human brain. Human brain. What's fascinating is we've got this idea that the brain is a fixed size, and for the most part it's roughly 4 pounds. And yet, cognitively, when I say that cognitively, we recognize that there's certain dimensions about the human brain that just mind-boggle us. Like right now I'm filming, and for every hour's worth of film, I'm developing about 6 gigabytes of data. When I go home and put that on a computer, it will replicate it, because it's called rendering, and I have 12 gigabytes of data. And typically after 6 months, I will fill up a terabyte of storage. Look, terabyte. All I can tell you is that's a lot of storage. But here's the fascinating point. I'm only talking about me filming for an hour, a couple times a week, and I fill up a terabyte in 6 months. But this device you have up here, the eyes that you have are your cameras. And your camera is operating from 6 in the morning to 10, 12 at night, and it's never off. And that camera, as it's developing, as it's working through people, topics, situations, environmental issues, driving traffic, going to work, talking to kids, and all these things that happen around you is nonstop, 16, 18 hours a day, and it's always running. And guess what? It'll run for 50 years. And you'll never forget. How many times you've been to a movie and you see the hour-and-a-half movie play, and 2 years later somebody will ask you, did you see that? Yeah. Do you remember this scene? Yes, I remember it. Holy crap. And all this is in this little thing called the human brain. And yet we don't understand how it works. We don't understand that as you get older, it really doesn't degrade at all. If you don't use it, you lose it. We find from studies with people that have lost a foot or a hand that the part of the brain that was designated to that part of the appendage that was lost becomes reorganized and used by something else. So your brain is always reorganizing itself. But this is the fascinating part about this. It's a structure. It's a piece of flesh. You can put it in a scale and you can measure it. And when they've taken human subjects and they've probed it to test by looking at, if you will, touching different parts of the brain, they'll say, wow, that's where the right foot. There's the right foot. There's the left ear. And they can actually specify what part of the brain is to what part of the body. But one thing that we've never been able to do, and if you will, in the last 8 years, we've learned more about the human brain than we have in the last 48 years. What we can't figure out is, how does the subjective mind work? I love that word, subjective. In this program, you've heard me talk about relationships. And I'll tell you, love relationships are 90% feelings and 10% facts. Common sense, right? I initially am attracted to you because the way you look. That's objective. Objective, an object, the lamp, it's beige, it's got some embroidery around it, and it's got a green. Objective, the facts that have to do with that lamp, objective. So objectively, you might have been interested in your partner because nice shape, beautiful eyes, wonderful hair. Subjective, how do I feel about that lamp? The emotional component, the part that makes me bond. Bond. See, unless you bond to someone, you don't fall in love. The interesting part of this, I hear men and women all the time say, I'm in love. I'm in love. We broke up. I don't know what to do. I'm still in love. And yet really what they're saying is, I'm emotionally bonded to this person, and when they're not with me, my stomach hurts, my head spins, I can't sleep, my appetite is reduced, I want to drink more, smoke more. All those things are true. But you see, those are emotions. Remember, 90% feelings, 10% facts. When we use the word, if you will, subjective, that's exactly what we're saying. The emotional brain. We can't figure out how the emotional brain works. We understand that you see a person. We understand that with that person you discuss a topic. We understand that when certain situations come, you tend to discuss this topic with that person. But there's an emotional component. And to this day, there is absolutely no understanding about why you feel emotionally. Does that make sense to you? So sometimes when I meet a client and a person wants to be in some type of therapeutic relationship, I'll do an assessment that tends to go through, how did you meet this person? You see, what are the facts? That's the objective part of it. How did you meet this person? What kind of things did you do? What kind of conflict was there? What kind of positive emotions were there? What kind of things did you enjoy? When was life better than not? And as I get to know you, I'm trying to develop an objective understanding of who you are. Now, all that said, because I'm not invested, I know either one of you, it's real easy for me to stand out and look and say, wow, you have problems. You know, when a plane is flying at 5,000 feet, you can see the city. You can see the streets. You can see the bridges, the turnpike. But that's all a therapist tries to do. Let me see the structure of your life. Let me see, why were you attracted to that person? Objectively, not subjectively, not emotionally. Think of the word emotion. I'm not emotionally invested at this point. But sometimes we misunderstand or misinterpret our connections to things. You know, you are a social creature. Genetically, you are that way. You will always have a desire to be with another person. The notion of having a family, the notion of having children, that's in you. That's part of your genetics, your DNA. There's parts of you that are structured. And sometimes when I ask you about your mom and your dad, and I find out your mom and your dad both had diabetes or they both had depression or anxiety, I can also project that forward and make the assumption, or at least a logical guess, that you may have problems with diabetes or depression or anxiety because you've inherited certain DNA, certain behaviors that are with the genetics of your mom and your dad. What it means is that sometimes as we are growing through life, we are selectively learning because we've inherited certain desires. Understand, it's no mystery that your dad liked the fish and your mom liked the fish, and you were with them and you watched them fish and you caught fish and you liked the fish. The embedded idea that I like the fish came with the environment that you were raised in. But sometimes when I talk to a person and they're telling me about how their environment's not working, and I ask them why that's not working, and they'll give me those characteristics. And again, I'm trying to look down at a bigger view. I'll say, well, have you ever done anything other than fishing? You don't understand, fishing is a recreation. When you go fishing, what's the purpose? To catch fish. What's the goal? To catch big fish. Have a trophy. In fact, I got a friend that sent me a picture of him holding a big fish, and oh my God, was he happy. But maybe I can say to you, well, have you tried anything else? What are you talking about? Well, you've spent your life fishing because no one ever did anything else. Have you thought about trying something else? Well, what would that look like? How about whitewater rafting if you live in North Carolina, South Carolina? How about if you live in the mountains? Have you ever tried skiing? I mean, these are winter events, but also summer, they still have these other things called whitewater rafting or hiking, whatever. And sometimes I find people have channeled themselves into a characteristical dead end in their relationship. See, they got so involved with the problem and the anger that they focused on, I feel this negative emotion when I'm with you, and I'm so mad at you. Now, and if you will, reflectively, you know, one of the things I teach you is about scorecarding. Scorecarding. Think about that in connection with the human brain. Scorecard. The list of things that I've never forgiven you for. Scorecarding. And, if you will, the brain can't tell the difference between the memory of a past negative event and it happening right now. So what that means is that this moment, using this 4 pounds, if I want to and willfully take the time to reach back 5 years, 5 days, 5 months into some negative event, by processing that historical record, which is stored in that 4 pounds, I can make myself feel depressed, anxious, dissatisfied, moody, all because I've taken an anchored part of this brain and brought it to the present moment. And the truth is, sometimes our life is, in fact, scattered with these triggers, the trigger of a negative thing. So when people ask me, do I change? Can I change? Well, yes and no. I can't change your DNA. That's done. I can't change that your mom and your dad brought you fishing all the time and that's all you know how to do is fish. I can't change that. But what I can do is change your perceptions of where you are as opposed to where you're going. You'll hear me say this fairly regularly, but you can't drive the car forward if you keep looking in the rearview mirror. By the way, try to do it. No, you'll either have a wreck or you'll feel so unsafe and you're going to just stop. I can't do this. Because why? You're looking at where you've been, not where you're going. How can you change if you keep looking at the past? You can't. You've got several problems. One is a lot of your emotions are here because of past negative events that are already buried in your brain. They're there. And a lot of times they're there because your family and your environment helped them get there. But also, let's just, for the sake of conversation, say, yes, you've never been in a happy relationship, and the last one you had was miserable. And therefore, when you try to look through the windshield of life, and I try to project what would a good time look like, you may not know. You may not know if you've been so secluded into something that was a dead end. If you've been so secluded into something that was negative, how would you know how to be positive? How would you know how to ski if you never skied? How would you know how to whitewater raft if you've never whitewater rafted? And the problem that we face with us, as we all have this notion, can we change, has to do directly with your desire for new information. Your desire for new information. I'm going to caveat that. You ever hear the expression, no pain, no gain? Ever hear that? A lot of people don't look to motivate, inspire, or drive themselves into a new direction unless they're hurting from something. Now, understand, that's personality too, isn't it? The idea that I've been secluded, that the pattern of my life has been so secluded to the way I've been taught, or the experiences that I've had recently, that when I ask Dr. Pilet, can I change? Dr. Pilet says, well, that's directly related to your desire to look ahead. Where am I going? And my willingness to change perception. My willingness to change perception. You ever think about that? How do you change your perceptions? How do you change perception? Well, perceptions are changed when you have the ability to compare something old to something new and see that there's something else to be that's not there before. Does that make sense to you? My perceptions only change if I open the book for new information. My perceptions only change if I compare that new information to the old information and decide, you know what, economically, motivationally, inspirationally, in terms of getting where I want to be, that ain't going to work. And so once I start to begin to realize that there is something else in life other than the same old, and then when I decide what that new direction might be, I got to do my homework. I got to do my homework. What is my homework? I've got to figure out how big that gap is. I got to figure out what part of it is embedded in me from the way I was taught. You know, you might have heard me say this before, but I just like it. You spend the first 30 years of your life being who you've been taught to be, and then you spend the rest of your life being who you decided to be. That's pretty heavy, right? But you can't make a decision to be someplace else until you've done an inventory of where you are, until you've made a decision that the place that I want to be, that inspiration, that notion that I want to be someplace else, starts within yourself. Do people change? Only if they make a decision that there's something about themselves that they want to modify. Can you make another person change against their will? No. Anybody that's seen a substance abuse program or been a part of one will tell you that part of a substance abuse program is for you to admit to yourself you have problems and for you to work with those problems in such a way to bring about another perception. Now let's talk about relational issues. I can't make you happy against your will, can I? But I guarantee you, if you close your eyes right now and reach inside and you think of something that was prosperous, some harmonious, some gleeful, delightful part of your life, right now you will relive it. And if you buy into what I'm saying to you right now, that the brain up here can only benefit from positive investments, and when I ask you to recognize that those positive investments are in fact optimism, you know, optimism doesn't guarantee success, but pessimism guarantees failure. If you begin to say to yourself, what if which is the idea that life can be different, life can be more prosperous, and you start rejecting the what for. 95% of the people that walk into my office and ask for help come in with a what for attitude. And the first thing I'll say to them, you're wasting my time. If you're going to look at the glass of life and say it's half empty, I can't do nothing for you. I can't do nothing for you as long as you look at your life and say it's half empty. But if you begin to say, my life is half full, now here's the important part about change. What does it take to bring that level up in your life to a more positive fulfillment? Glass half full fulfillment. It's incremental. It's a little at a time. It's exponential. The first day, the first week might be hard in bringing change to your life. It may be something simple as, you know what, I'm not going to involve in any pouting or any derogatory comments about anybody, and anytime someone says something to me negative, I'm going to try to find something positive. And I'm going to make it from an I statement. Hey, I'm sorry that happened to you. I really think that bad things do happen to good people. How do we move forward? And when I'm not going to allow myself to think of negative things, and I'm going to allow myself to think about where do we go, inspiration, motivation, that's the first part of it. Second part of it is to look at yourself and the world around you. If you're in a troubled relationship, it takes two to tango, guys. You wouldn't have fallen in love with somebody that argued with you from the day you met. You would not have fallen in love with someone that argued with you from the day that... So somewhere along the line it was working, and somewhere along the line it stopped working. Now you got to start making those decisions, not to change the other person, but to change yourself. You might get to the point where you actually say, I've got to change me. Self-centered, selfish. Self-centered. I center on my life and who I am. I center on what's good for me. I don't lend you money not because I don't have it. I do have it. I'm not going to lend you money because I'm an accommodating caretaker and I get so involved in the lives of other people, I don't know when to not to do it. So I'm in recovery. I'm not helping others unless, of course, it's in balance. What are you doing back for me? That's healthy stuff. That's healthy stuff. Positive, motivational. It's changing. Yes, people change. A friend of mine cynically said to me last week, people don't change. They're the way they are for life. I don't believe that for 1 second. You're the way you are by decision. Truthfully, you may be an autopilot because of the way you were raised. But when you make that decision to understand how your brain works, make the decision to how you receive information, make that decision to change perceptions, yes, you change. And you change rapidly. And you can have everything in life that you want if you make that decision. Hey, I'm Dr. Pilet. I hope you enjoyed that.